Let's start this during the events of the Phantom Menace. Palpatine has just informed his master, Darth Plagueis, that the Jedi have brought back a boy from Tatooine, whom they have labelled the Chosen One. Plagueis was horrified to hear this, and had to see the boy with his own eyes. It's late in the evening, and Plagueis makes his way to a public observatory, where he can see Qui-Gon, Obi-Wan, Queen Amidala, her handmaidens, as well as the boy, Anakin Skywalker, enter Amidala's royal starship. He had to see him with his own eyes, but as he stretches out with the Force, he fell victim to an assault of perplexing images. Ferocious battles in deep space, the clashing of lightsabers, partitions of radiant light, a black helmeted cyborg rising from a table. By the time his gaze had returned to the platform, Qui-Gon and the boy had disappeared. Trying desperately to make some sense of the images granted him by the Force, he stood motionless, watching the starship lift from the platform and climb into the night. He fought to repress the truth. The boy would change the course of history. The course himself, Darth Plagueis, had planned for the galaxy. Unless Maul had to kill Qui-Gon to keep the boy from being trained. Qui-Gon was the key to everything. Plagueis meets with Palpatine, who tells his master he's just ordered Maul to Naboo to kill Qui-Gon and Obi-Wan. But Plagueis isn't satisfied. Such a paramount task could not be trusted to a mere assassin, so Plagueis decides he must go himself. He watches the events play out in the shadows. Qui-Gon commands Anakin to stay in a ship as they open the hangar door where Maul is waiting. This is Plagueis' chance. Using his tremendous Force speed, he rushes over to Anakin and knocks him unconscious with one strike. Qui-Gon and Obi-Wan are focused on Maul, so are unable to sense Plagueis' presence, who is a master in concealing himself within the Force. Plagueis carries Anakin over his shoulder and watches the Jedi fight Maul. He was intrigued to witness the strength of the assassin Palpatine had trained, and he was impressed. He watches him effortlessly cut down Qui-Gon, and in his mind, the duel is finished. He killed the master, and the apprentice will surely follow. Plagueis leaves with Anakin, as he doesn't feel like staying any longer than necessary. But as he's leaving, he senses Maul's death at the hands of Obi-Wan Kenobi. Whilst this was going on, the Senate was voting for a new Chancellor, and Plagueis' final stages of the grand plan had been set in motion. Palpatine became Supreme Chancellor, and now the Sith was in control of the Republic. In the original timeline, Palpatine killed Plagueis the night before the vote in his office, when he was drunk. It was a spur-of-the-moment decision, and not planned. The dark side of the Force told him to do it. However, in this timeline, Plagueis was on Naboo, so Palpatine never got the chance to execute his master, and likely wouldn't find a time soon. He takes Anakin back to his office on Coruscant. Plagueis had done some research on Anakin, and discovered his slave master on Tatooine, and his upbringing changed his perspective on things. He originally thought that the Force created Anakin to fight back against his experiments, manipulating the midichlorians. But if this was true, why did he and his mother grow up as slaves? The fear and hatred of slaves is the greatest of its kind in the galaxy. It has brought way to many Sith Lords in the past. The perfect upbringing for a Sith. Maybe the Force created Anakin to help him in his journey. Only time will tell. But to further Plagueis' agenda, he sends assassins, wielding lightsabers he's stolen from Jedi corpses, to dispatch of Anakin's mother and make it seem like the Jedi murdered her. Anakin doesn't know much about the Jedi, Sith, or Force in that matter. He's still very malleable, and Plagueis is a master of manipulation. He tells the boy of Qui-Gon's death and defeat on Naboo, but twists the story, telling Anakin the Jedi Council conspired against him and Qui-Gon, as they didn't want him trained in the Force. He begins planting the seeds of doubt. He tells the boy the Jedi are arrogant and afraid. They fear losing their power they so hastily protect. They could tell the boy had the potential to challenge them, and conspired against him before he could become a threat. Not only did they attack Anakin, but also targeted his mother, and Plagueis shows Anakin the newsfeed of Shmi's death, with the title, Jedi Involved in Slaves Murder. The rage begins to deepen within Anakin. What Plagueis is saying are merely lies, but they are having the desired effect. Anakin is beginning his descent down the dark path. Anakin already saw Qui-Gon as the father he never had, the person who saved him from slavery and genuinely cared about him. The anger he feels towards the Jedi who took this from him has only just begun. Anakin asks Plagueis who he is, who replies, telling him he's like the Jedi in some ways, but in many ways completely different. He draws his power from fear and hatred, focusing on the acquisition of power. He explains how he's on a lifelong mission to enact revenge against the Jedi on behalf of the Sith Order, and offers to guide Anakin and help him in his own revenge against the Jedi. Anakin accepts, and Plagueis commands him to take a knee and pledge himself to the Order of the Sith. Plagueis proclaims from this day forth, the truth of him, now and forever, will be Electus, Darth Electus. Anakin rises, and Plagueis stops concealing his presence within the Force to reveal his true power to the boy, who looks up in shock. Plagueis looks deeply at the boy and tells him,
"In time, you will come to understand that you're one with the dark side, and that your power is beyond contradiction. But just know, until I tell you differently, abiding by submission is your only road to salvation."
The final acts of the grand plan are in motion. The Sith cannot lose. Plagueis is sure of it. Mere months ago, Dooku began aligning himself with Palpatine, and they met many times discussing the plan for the galaxy. Plagueis had seen Dooku as a potential ally for decades, and commands Sidious to reveal himself to the Jedi Master, and use Qui-Gon's death to pull him to the dark side. This is successful, and Dooku becomes Darth Tyrannus. He proved himself to the Sith by manipulating his close friend, Sifo-Dyas, to place the order for the creation of the clone army to fight alongside the Jedi. He then murders Dyas and takes over the project. It will take 10 years for the clones to be grown, but this gives time for the Sith to develop the Confederacy of Independent Systems. As part of their plan, Palpatine anointed Plagueis, known by the galaxy as Hugo Damask, as co-chancellor, a shock to many in the Senate, but it makes sense to most. Hugo Damask was the head of the International Banking Clan, a powerful force in galactic affairs. It's not surprising Palpatine would align himself with someone of this caliber. Together, they pledged themselves to making the galaxy and Republic a safer place, lying through their teeth. Anakin's training is ruthless. Plagueis tests him far more than he did Palpatine, believing the boy can handle it. He takes him to snow planets, in nothing but a shirt and pants, volcanic worlds in a heavy jacket, an aquatic world with no means to breathe. Plagueis is building up the hate within Anakin, but also helps him to understand the purpose of his teachings. He can't have his will tempered by feelings of regret or compassion. He tells Anakin he was brought in to lead, and therefore must see everything and everyone around him as tools to elevate his position to his destined place. He tells the boy,
"A Sith is the antithesis of a Jedi youngling, nurtured in the temple, battling with a floating remote and a training lightsaber. A Sith acquaints himself with pain from the start, and inflicts it as well."
Anakin's training lasted years, and he was pushed to his absolute limits. His training concludes on the planet Cursed, where Anakin will face his final test. He is tasked to defeat a whole race of primitive beings with nothing but a wooden bat. As they land, Anakin exits and the primitive beings start rushing from every direction. Plagueis watches in amazement. His prized possession, Anakin Skywalker, far exceeded his expectations. His speed, maneuverability, and aggression was unlike anything he's ever seen. Compared to Sidious years ago, Anakin was on a whole nother level. His training was complete. All this time, Plagueis had continued with the experiments on the midichlorians, manipulating them to control life and death. He's close, and it's only a matter of time before he perfects it. The year is 19 BBY, and the Clone War is around the corner. The last 10 years have been busy for the Sith. Together they form the Confederacy of Independent Systems, with Dooku as its leader, and worlds have begun leaving the Republic to join its movement. Anakin has been trained to a fully fledged Sith Lord, and Sidious and Plagueis sit atop of the Republic, able to manipulate the Senate and its senators into allowing them to remain in office afar after their term ended. The rule of two has been forsaken years ago, as it no longer favors their cause. The Sith remain strong and united, or at least Plagueis thought so, but he failed to sense Sidious's attitude towards Darth Electus. They've interacted many times, and Sidious is very jealous of his power and how Plagueis treats him. He can't read what Plagueis plans for the future, whether he's just using Sidious for his power and will cast him aside once they're in control, or whether he genuinely wishes for them all to rule together. He doesn't believe a Sith Lord could truly think that way, and begins thinking of ways to ensure his own survival and preservation, and aligns himself with Dooku, and together, they conspire against Plagueis and Anakin. Sidious brings Dooku to his side, by convincing him that the galaxy that Plagueis wants to build is different from the one-day vision. They want to rule as an autocratic empire, but Dooku and himself want to return the Republic to what it once was. They join forces, but decide to wait until the grand plan is implemented, because with the four of them aligned against the Jedi, their victory is inevitable. The Jedi are aware of the Sith and sense their growing power. They feel hopeless. The Sith revealed themselves 10 years ago, but they haven't been able to find them since, and they're constantly reminded of their growing power in the Force. The dark side has blinded the Jedi, and their ability to use the Force has greatly diminished. The Sith manipulate events so that the clone army is tracked down on Kamino, and the Clone War begins. Dooku reveals himself as leader of the Confederacy of Independent Systems, and Anakin is the leader of the droid army. Plagueis was keen for Anakin to gain experience during the Clone Wars, but was taken aback by the boy's power. He began killing Jedi Masters one by one with ease, and the Separatists quickly took a lead in the war. Plagueis had to hold Anakin back, not let him on the battlefield too often, or the war would begin to tip in the favour of the Separatists too much. This wasn't what they wanted. They wanted to prolong the war for years, to create distrust and hatred of the Jedi in the eyes of the people of the Republic, to portray them as the enemies of peace rather than the protectors. The war goes on for years, and the galaxy is turned into chaos, but it's going exactly like the Sith envisioned. The Sith control both sides, Dooku the Separatists, Sidious and Plagueis the Republic. They're able to tip the balance of the war to favour either side, and plan what side wins each battle before it even begins. Sidious and Dooku have refined their plan against Plagueis and Anakin, and plan to carry it out in the last days of the war. The Clone War comes to an end, and the Separatists leads their last campaign against the capital of the Republic, Coruscant. Together the four of them travel towards the Jedi Temple and execute Order 66. The Force is shrouded in malevolence as the Sith prepare to execute the grand plan. They enter the wide doors of the Jedi Temple and remain together as they make their way throughout the temple. They are an unstoppable force of nature, bringing about instant death to any Jedi that lays eyes on them. The dark side has control of them, guiding their movements as they purge the Force of the light side. The Sith Masters move with an unsettling grace, each movement a symphony of death. With every fallen Jedi, the dark side pulsed stronger, its tendrils intertwining with the chaos of the slaughter. Anakin enters one of the side rooms to find a group of Jedi hiding. Markedly, he looks upon a familiar face, Obi-Wan Kenobi and his Twi'lek apprentice next to him. Anakin smiles as the realization hits Obi-Wan. This is the boy he met years ago. He goes to utter Anakin's name, but he was already in motion, moving at unfathomable speed to end the life of everyone in the room. The Masters of the Jedi Council are dispersed around the temple, making it easy for the Sith to take them out. One by one, Windu, Yoda, Ki-Adi-Mundi, Fisto all succumb to the red lightsabers of the Sith. The dark side had claimed its victory, leaving a scar on the Force that would echo through the ages. Plagueis and Sidious, the Chancellors, stage a coup by the Jedi and forge security recordings of them attacking both Chancellors in their office. This is accepted by the Senate, and they declare the Jedi enemies of the Republic and transform the galaxy into the First Galactic Empire. That night, the Sith celebrate and allow themselves one evening to rejoice in their victory. They sit upon the penthouse balcony of 500 Republica, together, looking over Coruscant. Sidious comes over and pours a glass of the finest Celestian wine. They cheers and sip the elegant beverage, but Dooku and Sidious watch the others closely. Sidious has put Synox in their drink, the strongest undetectable poison even for a Sith Lord. It has no odor, color, or taste. They sit in silence, and Sidious waits for his chance to gloat. But his throat suddenly goes dry, and he looks at Dooku, who's clasping at his neck. He looks towards Plagueis and Anakin, who begin laughing.
What did you do, Plagueis?
Your plan was so weak, I almost pity you. Did you really think I wouldn't see through it? Do you think that little of me, Sidious? I sensed your and Dooku's betrayal years ago, but decided to string you along as pawns in mine and Anakin's game to give you a slight taste of victory before taking it away from you. You must be wondering why it wasn't Anakin and I who were poisoned. Well, I have an answer for that. You see, I made sure to have Anakin specialize in Force illusion for cases just like this. Yes, originally it was mine and Anakin's glass that had contained poison, but then using Force illusion, Anakin was able to switch the glasses. But from your point of view, he remained sitting still and motionless. Our own eyes often deceive us, but it seems some are more susceptible than others. I do think you, Sidious and Tyrannus, you were a huge help, but it seems your time is up.
Plagueis and Anakin rule as Emperors of the Galaxy, and together eliminate any threats that arise. Now with more time on his hands, Plagueis perfects his ability to control the midichlorians and successfully achieves the power over life and death, which he shares with Anakin. Together, they are able to preserve their life force and thus cannot die. They've done it. They are immortal beings with complete control over life and death. Anakin's power in the dark side achieved such heights that Plagueis thought impossible, obtaining the ability to fly, crush moons, and force choke across the galaxy. No one can oppose them, and the Sith will rule until the end of time. Thanks for watching, everyone. If you enjoyed the video, please consider watching What If Thrawn Joined the Republic, or What If Obi-Wan and Ahsoka Joined Anakin. Consider becoming a member of the channel to receive early updates on videos and video ideas, and I'll see you all next time.